I told her the number 5 did not exist for her anymore. She would go directly from 4 to 6 and then snapped her out of it. And then a few minutes later, got to come over, we're talking and, count your fingers for me. She looked at me like I'm crazy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. So what? She counts again. Well, that doesn't make sense. Count just one hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, count the other. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. How many you got? That's 12 now. I said, you're getting more every time we're counting. Start at 11, count backwards. She goes, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1. I get a 0. I teach something called the Mandel triangle. If you imagine an equilateral triangle. So if any one side grows, the others grow commensurate to that. And in the center is a little C, which means calibration. We have to be looking at the person. We have to be listening to them to notice the shifts taking place. So that's fundamental. But one of the sides is congruence. When we're congruent, our body language, our internal dialogue, our beliefs are sending one specific message. There's no, I think so. There's no ellipsis at the end of the sentence. And when we're congruent, we have another side working, which is confidence. Congruence leads to confidence. And when we're confident, people are drawn to us. We like being around confident people because they seem to have something to offer. And the last one is conviction, which is intention. I don't know how this one works. It's about as woo-woo as I get. But when we intend that shift to take place, something almost miraculous can happen. And if we look at ourselves and say, which of these lacks? Oh, I don't have a lot of confidence. How can I build my confidence? When they start doing that, through whatever means, the entire Mandel triangle becomes more stable and our communications become more powerful and our hypnotic work becomes more powerful. And a lot of that is sending that consistent, confident, powerful message with intention.
Welcome to the world's greatest minds, where the most successful, impactful, and creative game changers on the planet deliver their hardest hitting advice in 30 minutes or less. Every guest is specifically handpicked, there's no paid placements allowed, and every conversation is completely authentic and entirely unscripted. Big ideas, raw conversations, and real impact. This is World's Greatest Minds, and the revolution of thought starts now. Today on World's Greatest Minds, we sit down with the one and only Mike Mandel, widely regarded as one of the world's foremost hypnotists and hypnosis trainers with over, get this, 5,000 live hypnosis performances, decades working as a forensic hypnotist on major criminal cases, and as co-founder of the globally respected Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy. Mike has trained therapists, psychiatrists, and coaches around the world. He's a high school dropout who went on to be called, quote, masterful by NLP co-founder Dr. John Grinder. Mike's life is proof that your past does not define your potential and that the human mind is far more powerful than most people realize. Mike, thanks for being here, man. I really appreciate you.
Total pleasure, man. Total pleasure.
Yeah. Well, so you're something of a celebrity to me. This is the first time that we've ever met, but I've been hearing your name for years through our mutual friend, Chris Thompson.
Oh, yes.
He's like your
CEO.
John the Baptist. He went ahead and like paved the way for you. So shout out to
funny,
Chris.
man. Don't tell him that. He'll never get his head through a door.
Yeah, that's awesome. If you're listening to this, I want to allow for the idea that there's a spectrum of belief. And I'll give you some context, Mike, just to maybe start the conversation off as incendiary as we possibly can. I was raised Southern Baptist by Nancy Francis Carraway, who was as religious as could be and widely regarded hypnotism is something like the Ouija board. Like, you don't play with that.
Yeah.
That's evil. We're not going to do it.
It'll kill you. Send you to hell.
Yeah. Now, obviously, I don't believe that at all. And I think there are people that do, or at least have some realm of, connotation, let's say pre-existing context. Could you just break it down for us and talk to us about what hypnotism really is to the layman?
Yeah. And let's address what you just said too. It's interesting. I'm actually a Presbyterian elder and,
No way.
yeah. And it's really interesting because the minister in our church, when I went years ago, he's East Indian and had pastored in DC. And he said, what do you do? And I said, I'm a hypnotist. He said, well, that's wonderful. You must be able to help a lot of people. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's interesting because so many people get these crazy ideas. Hypnosis is a naturally occurring state for human beings. We go in and out of trance all the time. Walensky documented this. We drive a long distance, we zone out. Our unconscious mind is great at driving. And we watch a movie, we get emotionally caught up in it. I was just watching skiing on the Olympics yesterday, and I noticed my body was moving with the skier, even though I don't ski. We get an idiomotor response. Hypnosis is all around us, and you can't stop it because you'd have to stop conversations too.
So as you're speaking, are you actively participating in some level of hypnotism?
Always. As are you.
Yeah.
Because if I tell you a story about the cabin we have in Northern Ontario and describe it to you or to, any of your listeners listening now, everybody will get an internal representation of what that is like, but none of them will be the cabin. There's too much deleted information, but everyone will have an internal experience based on their own beliefs and their own presuppositions and their own understanding of language. They'll create something that will approximate what I'm talking about. And that's what we do as human beings. We go inside and create meaning. We go inside and change our states. And hypnosis is the best way of getting inside because we can get to the power of the unconscious and change everything.
So talk to me a little bit about that. Let's say that, okay, we've down-regulated any of the negative stigmatism around hypnosis. Well, then what's the point? I mean, it's not just a parlor trick, right? We're not going to sit around
Right.
making people quack like a duck. Like, what are the value propositions behind it?
Yeah. The thing is with hypnosis, I train professional hypnotists, hypnotherapists, psychologists, and so on. And we teach them to get in, make changes really fast, and jump out again. Now, this will annoy people who are talk therapists, and there is a place for talk therapy. But if someone's been in talk therapy for 2 years, I always ask the client, what does that say to you? It's not working? Bingo. With hypnosis, a good hypnotherapist, a well-trained one, we are the special forces of therapy. We get in, erase a phobia. The fastest one I did was 2 phobias in 8 minutes in Newfoundland, 2 different people. And they were both terrified of elevators. And afterwards, you couldn't get them out of the elevator. They were having so much fun riding up and down. It's a great way to get in. Now we know where the buttons are. It's had a checkered history, but now we understand the neuroscience behind it.
So you've had a storied history, and some of your career just sounds extraordinary. The one that popped right out of me though, and that probably because there's some name dropping, but it also sounds so interesting, is hypnotizing Alanis Morissette and making her forget the number 5 existed. Tell me about that.
Yes. Yes. And I found the video, which is great. Back when I was performing in the crazy 80s and I had my 80s, crazy hair, I performed at Glebe Collegiate in Ottawa. And that is before she had just taken off. She was doing her disco queen starting stuff as a singer. She had big hair and she was a student there. And she volunteered for my hypnosis show. Months later, I sent out a VHS video to Burger King North America to try to get them to book me for a gig. And they said, oh, what sold us was the person in your video. And I went, who, me? No, you don't know? And I went, no. They said, when did you last watch it? I said, I don't know, a year ago. Go watch it. And I watched it, saw it was her. And it's
Oh, that's
undeniably
cool.
her, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that's so cool. And how did you make her forget? Well, how and why would you make her forget the number 5 existed?
It's fun because when you got someone in a deep trance, and somnambulism is the working state of hypnosis where we can get right into the unconscious. I told her the number 5 did not exist for her anymore. She would go directly from 4 to 6 and then snapped her out of it. And then a few minutes later, got to come over, we're talking and, count your fingers for me. She looked at me like I'm crazy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I said, what? She counts again, 11. I said, well, that doesn't make sense. Count just one hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Count the other. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. How many you got? That's 12 now. I said, you're getting more every time we're counting. Start at 11, count backwards. She goes, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1. I get a 0 finger. And the brain can make these ridiculous leaps because of something that Dr. M.T. Ornick came up with many years ago at University of Pennsylvania. He talked about trance logic. And when we're in hypnosis, we can mitigate all sorts of cognitive dissonance. You can be on a stage in a theater and you're also on the Titanic at the same time. It doesn't matter at all. You can absorb and accept both realities, including a reality that says you've forgotten your name or a number.
So just from a practical application standpoint, let's say our listeners they're in, which I am, by the way. It sounds amazing. Where do you start?
Beginning.
Yeah.
Well, understand, first of all, that hypnosis it's happening all the time. And there's great ways of experimenting with it, especially high achievers, because going into trance for a few minutes a day is an amazing thing for getting into powerful hypnotic states to then graft on whatever you want to do in your life. In fact, there's a sans cosm that all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. The hypnotist has no power. We're just the conductor of the orchestra, but they do everything. But if people want to get started, shameless self-promotion, we have the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy, where Chris probably told you can get started for $1. $1 and check out absolutely everything. We have hundreds of training videos, and I think it's about a week's access or something, and people can test drive it with absolutely no risk. And that's how we got some great students. And it's the greatest joy for me. The thing that turns my crank is training somebody with no previous experience, turning them into a superb general practitioner of hypnosis, and then turning them loose on the world to change it one person at a time. Getting rid of people's fears, anxieties, making them stronger, like all of these things.
So you mentioned a couple out of the gate that veered in the direction of, something like, I don't know, remediation, right? It's fear, anxiety, phobias.
Hmm.
But you also mentioned peak performers, which I think a lot
Yes.
of our listeners lean in that direction as well. I'm sure they have fears and anxieties, but some of the interest might be something like maximizing potential. Can you talk to me about
Yes.
where hypnosis lies there?
Yes, there's 2 basic streams. There's remedial hypnosis where you're fixing a problem, and there's generative hypnosis where we're creating high performance states and grafting them to the person. Years ago, a firefighter in Toronto approached me. He was a ridiculously fast freestyle swimmer, and he was going to the police and fire games, which is quite big, I understand. He had developed a problem where he did 200 meters freestyle, so it's a 50-foot pool. The third turn, the final turn, he'd be ahead of everybody.
Mm.
he would invariably turn too soon, half a second too soon, get no proper push off the wall, and finish dead last. I put him in a trance. We had him watch himself swimming, watch the mistake in his imagination. Then he watched it again from the beginning. And this time, at the exact moment he was supposed to make the turn, his unconscious mind made a bright green flash in his mind. And then he saw himself do it perfectly. And I did that about 5 times with him in trance. And that was it. He said, do I have to think of a flash or something? I said, no, you don't have to do anything. It's unconscious now. He went out and he got a number of gold medals at the police and fire games.
Wow.
And because his unconscious mind said, turn now, and he just turned. He didn't even have to think about it. We can get to those points. We can make people into better speakers. We can turn people into better thinkers, more creative people. We can remove a lot of the baggage with the remedial stuff and then energize them and change everything.
So I'm going to ask you the lazy man's question. Do I have to learn hypnosis, or can I just go hang out with Chris Thompson and get him to, like,
Yeah, that's
just
the
hit me
easiest
up?
way.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way. And, that's a good point, because learning it's one thing, but to experience it, all you need to do is get a good hypnotherapist to put you in trance and give you a signal. So every time you want to go in trance, you'll just lie down, whatever, close your eyes and give yourself a trigger word or squeeze your fingers together or something that would become anchored. And you'll drift into that power state immediately. And therein lies the real change work. We talk about microdosing hypnosis in 1 or 2 minute segments through a day, which I got from another trainer, Desiree Eckert, who's a terrific hypnotist. But she was one of our guest trainers. That's a great idea. To be able to go in and out of trance very, very quickly is a useful skill. For example, at our little cabin up north, I took a tray of spare ribs out of the oven, and the oven was 450 degrees. And so I was crisping them up, and it's a heavy metal tray. So it holds a lot of heat. I had the requisite blacksmith gloves on, take this thing out, set it on the counter on a couple of trivets, turn around, took the gloves off, noticed it wasn't straight on the counter, it was crooked. Idiot boy. I immediately grabbed it. It was so hot, my fingers stuck to it, 2 fingers. And oh man, that hurts. Well, the rule is flush burns with cold water until help arrives. Had them under the tap. And I said, I've been telling people for years that you can reduce the severity of burns with hypnosis. It's well established. I've never done it. I'm going to give this a shot. I said to my wife, I'm going to go lie down in the other room. I'll be back in about 20 minutes. So I put myself in trance, and I imagined a little fireman with tanks of liquid nitrogen. And he started hosing down my 2 fingertips until he became white and cold. And he got to the second one. The first one would start throbbing again. Just kept doing it till he stopped throbbing. He stopped hurting. That is my witness. The next morning, I came in, I said to my wife, those fingers I burned yesterday? She went, yeah, you idiot, because we've been married 40 plus years. I said, look, and there's nothing. She said, it's the other hand. I went, no, it isn't. And there was nothing, not even a 1st-degree burn, nothing. We can take a burn back, a whole switch. Now, how can that be? Because we now know that burn severity is caused by bradykinin release. It's an inflammatory agent right on site. So you get the burn damage, and then your body releases these bradykinins, and they make it worse. It goes into panic mode. If we can get to a burn within a couple of hours, especially within an hour, we can shut off bradykinin release completely. It just doesn't happen. And then the hand starts to heal. It's so useful.
So just to get ultra self-interested and very personal, I have mercury poisoning. I have mercury in my brain and lead in my bones. And I think mercury elsewhere too, from what I've understood about mercury poisoning, but levels of toxicity that are super high, higher than we can address using what modern medicine counts as chelation therapy. What
Yeah.
would you do or tell somebody with mercury? Like, is that the type of thing that you could attend to using hypnotism?
Great question. And I've no idea. But what I would say to someone is you have absolutely nothing to lose, because it's not going to cause any harm. And who knows if hypnosis can increase chelation in the body and just get the stuff out? We don't know.
Right.
We don't even know the limits on this yet. So as Richard Bandler said, pretend there's no limits. Now, if you're aiming for the sun, you might hit the moon, but pretend there's no limits. And at worst, it won't work. But maybe you'll discover things are much better than you dreamed.
Yeah.
Mercury and lead, that sucks.
It's like everybody's got their thing. This is mine. Yeah, but as you were describing the fire, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, man, I wonder if I can just begin to visualize, something like what you just mentioned, that just the chelation working. And maybe I've got, little miners going in and mining them.
Yeah. Or have a hypnotist who can just get you in a trance and give you the direct suggestions. Your body is chelating. Your body is removing all the toxicity. This is changing now, and it will happen at an accelerating rate. And you'll discover almost immediately how much better you feel. And in a deep trance, those simple suggestions go right into the unconscious and begin working.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Okay.
We get the critical faculty, the critical part of the brain out of the way with hypnosis. And that's how we get in.
Do you feel hypnosis runs a parallel track with meditation?
Oh, it's a great question, because I keep saying it's a great question, but they all are. It's interesting because all meditation is hypnosis, but not all hypnosis is meditation. We're back to all trout are fish, but not all fish are trout.
Yeah.
So when one goes into meditation, with the exception of Zen meditators, in Japan and so on, the Zen mystics, they produce a theta wave, and everybody else produces high and low alpha waves, which are close to daydreaming. But this theta wave is extremely creative. And interestingly, the West got there first this time, because if you put someone in a deep trance with hypnosis, they'll get a theta wave automatically. We don't have to meditate. We don't have to be hit with bamboo rods and figure out koans, the sound of one hand clapping or any of this stuff. Hypnosis will do the job for us. So at least once the West got it right.
If you want to find a hypnotist that really resonates with you, where do you go? Do you have a directory? Is there a
We do. We actually have MikeMandelHypnosis.com/certified-hypnotists. And all of our hypnotists worldwide are listed there, including those who are psychologists, medical doctors, and so on. And they can deal with deeper problems. And the average hypnotist is going to deal with day-to-day problems, the simple things, the insomnia, the chronic pain, that sort of stuff. Phobias,
Yeah.
anxieties, and allergies. Allergies are the freakiest one.
Well, if you don't mind, and again, I hate to turn this into a carnival, but give me your biggest, like, Billy Mays before and after crazy hypnotist story.
Well, there's a lot of them, as you can imagine, but one that really stays in my mind was one of the things we do in our live trainings in Toronto twice a year, May and November. We do 5-day intensives for complete beginners or psychiatrists, whoever. And one of the things we do on, I think, the final day is called the immune system retrain. Why do we call it that? Because we can't call it an allergy cure. Now, I'm not saying it cures allergies. I would never say that it absolutely cures allergies, so I won't. But even people go into anaphylaxis. Now, we had a woman in the class, and I would demo on somebody who had a bad allergy, and we never had it fail as far as I can tell. It's a basic technique. We're retraining the immune system in just a couple of minutes. And this woman was allergic to shellfish, oysters, which to me would be a nightmare to be allergic to raw oysters. But she was, and shrimp too. And she and her husband had just inherited an oyster farm in Nova Scotia where they live.
It's kind of like
And so
God
this is
summoned
like,
knows that shit.
yeah, isn't it though? So anyway, she was a volunteer. So I hypnotized her, ran the allergy treatment on her. And I always say the same thing. If it's something like anaphylaxis, it's not, a cat makes my eyes water or whatever. I mean, that's safe. But if someone can go into anaphylactic shock, where I've been too from a bee sting, a wasp sting, it's not a nice place and it's dangerous. You can die from it. So we tell people, go back to your doctor or go to an allergist and be retested. Don't test it yourself. Well, this woman didn't listen to me. And that night, she and her husband in the hotel in Toronto ordered raw oysters. And she tested very carefully and they videoed it. And then she ate them and just went, nothing whatsoever. Not turning it down, Cosm. That's the thing. Actually getting rid of it completely. So that it's like a phobia of the immune system. With a phobia, we see something innocuous, like a tree or something, and are afraid of it. And with an allergy, it's something that our body perceives as dangerous or even deadly, but it's also innocuous. We just re-educate the immune system. We go, oh yeah, that thing's not a problem. And it just stops instantly.
That's amazing.
Well, my question is, say to the person, they say my allergy's gone. I say, yeah, ask your allergist why he's not or she isn't doing this. Like, why are they sending you for all these skin patch tests and, gradual desensitization with rounds and rounds of injections when we have a method that works at the source, at the problem, at the cause?
Yeah. In your experience, what is the stereotypical allergist's response?
I don't know. No one's ever told me. I would say, go and ask them why they don't do this. One of the women in her class, her husband was an MD, and she had a dairy problem really bad. If she'd eat even a little bit of cheese, within minutes to an hour, she'd get really sick stomach, vomiting and so on. And so she was the person we did the experiment on, the treatment in the class. And she didn't listen. She went to Starbucks next door and bought one of these chunks of cheese with a package of stuff and ate the whole thing and nothing happened. And her husband came to pick her up in the lobby, the medical doctor. And she said, my allergy's gone, my problem with dairy. And he went, what? She said, this guy got rid of it. I didn't do it. She did it. I just showed her how.
Yeah. Do you feel that hypnotism can be used for ill intent? The thing that pops into my head, actually, as you were talking about doctors, is I feel that medical doctors have been indoctrinated into a way of thinking that they can't be pulled out of. Like, you can't go into that allergen's office and tell him, hey, there's a better way to do it, because I feel like he or she is hypnotized toward the, if it's not in a textbook and it's not on NIH and PubMed and peer review, they're just not going to listen.
You're 100% right. You're 100% right. People build up their reality tunnels about the world based on beliefs and previous experience and suppositions and all these things. And they tend to filter out information that does not agree with it. Like a Google search. Why do we search? We do a Google search. Well, now it's all AI, but back in the days when Google was king, we're checking for things that will support what we believe. Give me 10 reasons why you can't get rid of allergies with hypnosis. Well, it's bad. See, it's the same with our brains. We set up these constraints, these reality tunnels, as Robert Anton Wilson said, and things that don't agree with it get filtered out. But we have the other ones, the amazing hypnotists and psychologists. Dabney Ewan just passed away in Louisiana. He was a professor of surgery and a psychologist. We have Bruce Eimer, who's a friend of mine, psychologist. We have the great ones, the psychiatrists and the pain management specialists who are coming forward now. And they're opening up their models and they're giving this a shot and they're getting amazing results because their attitude has changed. And because a doctor has so much credibility, if they say, oh, that isn't going to work, there's a lot of time there could be a nocebo effect and they could cause it to not work just because of their prestige, which is a huge part of hypnosis.
The story, but something's coming to mind about somebody who I guess maybe anesthesia wasn't available, and so they went with hypnotism instead. Does that sound familiar?
Well, the classic case of that was in the 80s in Calcutta, India. It was Dr. James Esdale, who was a British Army surgeon, and he ran in the hospital in Calcutta. He was doing mesmerism then, which was very primitive hypnosis. It would take 2 to 3 hours to get the person deep enough. But he did nearly 300 operations using just hypnosis as anesthetic, including cutting out the toenail from your big toe, cutting it right out to the roots of the scalpel with no response. And best of all, get ready to flinch, 80-pound testicular tumors. Which begs the question, one, why one waits until they're that big before seeking medical attention. But these were guys, if you look online, people who have elephantiasis and develop this problem literally carried their testicles in a wheelbarrow in front of them. And he would cut these things off with no anesthetic, and even the bleeding would stop quickly. He took post-operative mortality down from 50% to about 5%. It was just incredible. No infection, nothing. People healed quickly.
Wow. It pisses me off, Mike, because it's like, why didn't that carry forward? Why isn't that the gold standard? Why are we
Well,
pumping ourselves full of drugs?
It started, poor Esdale. What happened to him was he got these incredible results. And because he was a doctor, he really documented everything beautifully in his book, Mesmerism in India. But he came to Toronto. Well, I wish he had. I would have learned from him. He came to London. He went to London, England. And he wanted to show the Royal College of Surgeons all these things he discovered. But they're all very, so I'm not going to a stiff upper lip, absolutely. He couldn't get anyone into trance, not anyone. Now, India was a hotbed of mysticism and open-mindedness at that time. It was easy for him to do it there. But when he brought it to England, it just fell apart. And there's
Man,
been
that's
so much
so
resistance
interesting.
over the years. There's lots of resistance. Hypnosis is
Yeah.
being used, to de-traumatize after wars. But then as soon as the war is over and everybody's de-traumatized, they tended to put it back on the shelf again and go back to psychoanalysis. These long-term things where you talk about your problem over and over and over and hope that eventually you figure it out. I'd rather have someone who can get rid of it.
Are you familiar with applied kinesiology?
Yes, I am.
I'm just curious. Is there a kissing cousin scenario
There
there? Or
is.
am I reaching now?
No, you're not at all. In fact, when I studied with Dr. Larry Nims, a psychologist in Oakland, one of the things I trained in was his modality called BSET Free Fast. It was very clever. And you would check your work with applied kinesiology. The person would say, I'm over this problem, and you're pressing down and they suddenly go weak. And it means
Well,
you've
can I
still got
pause
work
you
to
real
do.
quick, Mike? For our listener, if they haven't heard applied kinesiology, which is also called muscle testing, will you give us just like the quick, TikTok version of what that is?
Yeah, sure. Applied kinesiology, I think it was developed by a chiropractor. The idea is that when you're making strong statements in certain areas, or even when you're wearing a pair of glasses that cuts the center line with metal, all these things make you temporarily weaker. And this can be tested. So they'd say, press down in your hand, resist, be strong. And they press with 2 fingers. They say your name. So I say, I am Mike. And okay, you're strong. Now say, I am Dave, and press. So I'm Dave. And then they go weak. Now, here's the problem with this. This is closely akin to something in hypnosis called ideomotor signaling. We can get signals from the unconscious. There is a connection between external physical movement and what our mind is thinking at that time. But the problem with applied kinesiology, to my way of thinking, is you've got another person in this loop with you. And if they believe you're going to go weak, how can they not unconsciously press a bit harder?
Mm-hmm.
And so if they had something like a fish weighing from your head and a scale to see how much pressure is being put, then I'd be more accepting of the results. But it is related. But it is a psychodynamic loop between the tester and the person being tested. It's not just the person being tested. And that's where I think it can muddy the waters sometimes. Without saying it's useless or anything, it does have its place.
It's so interesting because now I wonder, like let's say robotics actually catches up to a point to where you could train a robot to do muscle testing. Now the robot can be, in theory, I don't know anything about the way that AI functions, but I assume something like completely objective. And the pressure being placed is even every time and even measurable, like demonstrably so.
Right.
But then my question is, does the tester also need to exhibit a level of consciousness in order for this? I mean, is it like a magnetic loop, or is it really just the person being
It's just they're tensing their muscles in response to suggestion
okay?
or not doing it. And yeah, again, it does have its place. I mean, some people do it on themselves. And I've shown my students this. My master students have had pretty good results with it. You cross your fingers, so your middle finger over your first finger, and you tell your unconscious mind that when you press them together, a yes signal means they won't slip, and a no signal means that they will slip. And you can install this with a trance. And then later on, you say, should I take that afternoon nap today? No. Okay, I'm going to have the energy. You're getting to your unconscious with it. But some people, yeah, that's legitimate to a point. But there's also the people who then, they get an email from someone saying, I'm on this medicine now. Is this the right one? And they're clicking their fingers at the other end of the email. I'm skeptical of that they're in some sort of long distance psychodynamic loop and their fingers clicking. Very often, the people who do a lot of that stuff, it doesn't seem to reflect in their lives that their lives are working that well.
Yeah, it's such an interesting point. I think about everything. If you really want to pursue an end goal, follow someone who's achieved that goal. I remember going to a
Yeah.
dermatologist, and I had vitiligo, which ended up being because of my mercury poisoning, but I didn't know that at the time. And I'm going to this dermatologist, and he was very kind, and he kept like, it was different steroids, pharmaceuticals, whatever. And by the second or third time, something clicked, and I was like, "Dude, you have horrible skin." You know what I mean? Like, as a
Yeah.
dermatologist, you have terrible and it wasn't even Mike, it was like SNL bad. It was like
Yeah.
comedy
Yeah.
skit bad skin. And I'm like, "Why am," and I'm not saying he's a bad person, but he's not a good
No, of course not.
dermatologist, you know? So what if I'm looking for a hypnotist who really does exhibit the traits, like, talk to me about what that looks like, 'cause I picture someone, to be honest with you, like Chris Thompson, good looking, fit,
Yeah.
confident, good
Yeah.
communicator. Like,
Yeah.
what is it that hypnotism promises if this is something we practice over time?
It's a great question because you sort of hit the nail on the head with that, to use the metaphorical explanation. That the whole point that if I was going to go for weight management, which God forbid I don't need to, I wouldn't want a hypnotist who is 80 pounds overweight. I want somebody who's exhibiting the sort of congruence in their lifestyle, who is exhibiting that confidence and has a raft of recommendations too. When I was a therapist from 1993 to 2000, at a really nice place, an upscale part of Toronto, right on Lake Ontario, and I made it difficult to see me because that way I only got the people who really wanted to change. And during that time, it was interesting because people would go in and out of trance in the office, their lives would change. And a lot of the time, I hadn't really done that much. But when they've gotten a strong recommendation from a family member, and I never advertised, almost everything was just word of mouth recommendation. When we have that, it's right away the credibility is going up. With credibility, we have prestige, and prestige is one of the powers of hypnosis. I mean, that's what Mesmer did. He'd wear a turban, he'd carry a freaking wand and robes, and building this image of himself. And he became a rock star. Anybody who was anybody went to see Mesmer. So he had the reps. So he didn't even have to do much. And so prestige is a huge part of it. And we'll have that when we are congruent. I teach something called the Mandel triangle. If you imagine an equilateral triangle. So if any one side grows, the others grow commensurate to that. And in the center is a little C, which means calibration. We have to be looking at the person. We have to be listening to them to notice the shifts taking place. So that's fundamental. But one of the sides is congruence. When we're congruent, our body language, our internal dialogue, our beliefs are sending one specific message. There's no, I think so. There's no ellipsis at the end of the sentence. And when we're congruent, we have another side working, which is confidence. Congruence leads to confidence. And when we're confident, people are drawn to us. We like being around confident people because they seem to have something to offer. And the last one is conviction, which is intention. I don't know how this one works. It's about as woo-woo as I get. But when we intend that shift to take place, something almost miraculous can happen. And if we look at ourselves and say, which of these lacks? Oh, I don't have a lot of confidence. How can I build my confidence? When they start doing that, through whatever means, the entire Mandel triangle becomes more stable and our communications become more powerful and our hypnotic work becomes more powerful. And a lot of that is sending that consistent, confident, powerful message with intention, all undergirded by calibration. So we're watching for the shifts. If someone zones out suddenly, one of our guys, Timothy September, excellent trainer, he'll say, where did you just go? Because he's seen it. And that will often give him a door now to get in to make the shifts.
Yeah, I know Timothy. He came, he's a driven member. He came to one of our events, sat next to one of my very best friends in the whole wide world, gentleman's name's John Broman. John runs Front Row Dads. He's one of the best humans I've ever known. And I walk over at one point and they're just chatting. And then I make my rounds, which I always do during dinner. And when I come back, I think it's been, I don't know, dude, 15 minutes. Sean's like almost near tears. And I put my hand on his shoulder. He looks up at me and he's like, that was the most amazing thing I've ever experienced. And to this day, I still actually, neither of them will, not that they won't, but like, it's just it's between them what happened. But in
Yeah.
15 minutes, and Vroman he's done the work. And when I say, he's gone to the edges of the universe to do like, the work. And so for someone to take him off guard, that really inspired a lot of confidence.
Yeah, September Man's very skilled. I heard that story from Chris. It's
Yeah.
interesting. He just enters the loop with someone, enters that
Yeah.
psychodynamic loop. And that's what a good hypnotist does.
Well, so can you train anybody to do that, Mike? Or is it, it's just like Michael Jordan just felt like he was born with a basketball, right? Anybody
Yeah.
can play basketball, but not everybody's going to be MJ. I imagine hypnotism's the same.
Pretty much, yeah. Like I started in 1965, so I've been doing hypnosis for over 60 years. I started doing it professionally 10 years later. So I've been doing it full time for 51 years now. And in that time, I realized that a lot of this is made way too complicated. That's our whole maxim, is we strip it down to what works. We don't need to read scripts at people and memorize a script because they're scared of a blue frog with green spots. And let's look for that script. No, we don't want to read at someone. We want to interact with that human being. And that's that psychodynamic loop that I said, we're calibrating it with the person. That can be taught. The big chunks can be taught easily and quickly. And that's why Chris and I and Timothy and the others, we churn out really good general practitioners. And then some of them go on to be pain management specialists or sports experts, whatever it is, sports physiology, performance, all of these things. And it's because the big chunks, learning how to engage another human, learning the main ways of getting people in and out of trance, learning to recognize trance when it's happening, how to get in and make the shift. And that's the easy part to teach. Anybody can become good at it. Not everybody will be a superstar, but anybody can become good.
What am I not asking you that I should be? What would a smarter person ask you?
The biggest mistake I made for years was I was a lone wolf. When I was 44 years doing shows and a couple of, I guess about 20 odd years doing keynotes, I would never let anyone give me any information purely out of pride. No, this is my ideal. I don't need your help with it. I don't want to hear your material. I'm going to do my thing. And I was rigidly resistant. And my wife was on my case all the time, and rightly so, because I didn't want anybody else getting it. It felt like I was losing control, even of my identity. If I do his material, he has some great ideas. That's his stuff. That's not me anymore. And it was really silly. And it was about 14 years ago, I finally agreed to collaborate against all resistance. And that's when Chris Thompson and I created Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy and began to do Brain Software podcast and so on. And that was the biggest transformation in my life, was when I learned to let my freaking guard down and work in collaboration with someone else. Everything changed. And so did all the ego around it. It's like, who cares? To get the best result we can, teach the most people we can, and again, change the world one person at a time.
I love that, man. If you don't mind, can we get a bit of a sales pitch for the Hypnosis Academy? If people want to sign up, where do they go and what can they expect?
Yeah. Thank you. Check out MikeMandelHypnosis.com. That's Mandel with one L, just like on the shirt I'm wearing, although it's a reverse here. MikeMandelHypnosis.com. And you can try our free trial. Test drive us. Find out what makes us different. Find out how we can turn you into a kick-ass hypnotist. You can do it as a side hustle. You can do it just because you're interested. If you want to be on stage, or if you want to use it for street hypnosis for your own amusement, you can use it for that. Or if, like many people, I think we train 6 psychiatrists now, numerous psychologists, pain management specialists. If you want to add this to your practice, check us out. Anybody can risk a buck, and we'll show you what we have. And we think you'll love it. Other than that, listen to the Brain Software podcast. We put all our stuff out there I think we're up to podcast 300 now or something.
Wow.
Years of this, ridiculous. I'm amazed anybody even comes out and studies with me when we do Brain Software podcast. And we had 2 psychiatrists who came in from Singapore to train with us in Toronto. And I said, how do you find out about us? They said the podcast. And I'm going, God, that's my unrestrained humor at its finest. But I was amazed anybody would come and train with us, but they do.
I love that, man. Mike, thank you so much for being on the show. This was a gift. I really appreciate you.
Pleasure indeed, my friend.
And thank you for listening. Mike Mandel is living proof that the mind is not a fixed machine. It's a dynamic system that can be retrained, redirected, and rebuilt. From forensic investigations to global hypnosis training, from personal adversity to elite level vitality, Mike's story challenges the idea that we're limited by our history. If you've ever wondered how deep the rabbit hole of the subconscious really goes, this conversation with Mike Mandel opens the door. Mike, you truly are one of the world's greatest minds. Thanks for being here.
Bless you, my friend.
You've just heard another powerful episode on World's Greatest Minds. For links, resources, and full show notes from this episode, go to worldsgreatestminds.com, where you can also subscribe so you never miss another episode, drop us a review because your feedback fuels the mission, and share this with somebody who's willing to buck the status quo. Most importantly, tell us who you think we should interview next. Nominate the people who you believe have the results, the track record, and the brilliance to truly qualify as one of the world's greatest minds. Join us weekly as we forge innovation in real time. This is World's Greatest Mind. The revolution of thought continues with you.